Welcome to our online workshop for successful recruitment strategies. This is ideal for anyone who might be tabling or recruiting for your club, but most importantly, for your public relations or recruitment officers. Before you table or recruit in general, you want to think about preparation. Consider why someone would join your club. Why did you join? What are the perks and the benefits? Students will simply ask, why should I join? And you need to be prepared with a short response, selling them on what you do. If your club is hard to explain, try narrowing down a few sentences that cover the basics. Also, before your table, you want to create whatever handout you're going to use that includes all of your social media and ways to contact you. They'll pick up many flyers, so make sure that yours includes everything they need. Now, flyers are great, but you also want to capture information about them so that you can follow up and send them info as your meetings approach. So create a sign-in sheet that you have with you always. I say always because you never know when you'll be in class or sitting at the hub and discover someone that might be interested in what you do. In terms of social media, make sure all your pages are active. If a potential member looks at your Instagram and your last post was months ago, it might look like your club is really not doing much. So find ways to use your social media so it looks active and alive. If there's a page you no longer use, like Twitter or Facebook, consider either deactivating the account or putting a "we don't use this anymore" post so that people don't assume your group isn't around anymore. It's better to have no Twitter, for example, than to have a Twitter from 6 years ago that looks abandoned. Now that you've narrowed down what sites you want to use, make sure you're focusing on people. Some groups just post flyers, and it's not very engaging. You can't get a good idea who is in the group or how many people there are, so find ways to showcase officers or members and show pictures of the events that you host, not just the flyer for the event. Consider delegating your social media out to multiple people, maybe a social media committee, so multiple people can be working on brainstorming and creating topics and posts. And when you post, make sure you're using the hashtags and groups that our new students are using. On Facebook, there tends to be a class of 2022 or whatever page that you can post your group's info in. On Instagram, you want to make sure you use hashtags that are relevant. So during the summer, you'll want to use Highlander orientation. You can always use hashtag UCR and hashtag UC Riverside throughout the year. In terms of recruiting via physical flyers, I want you to think critically about how you use these. Students tend to not look at these bulletin boards, so you can decide if it's worth your time and money to make these flyers. If you do want to post there, you have to use the 30 bulletin boards that we operate. You can't post in other places around campus. It'll likely get taken down and you may get sent to student conduct. If your group is specific to a major or department, you can ask that department for permission to post in their buildings. On these flyers, you'll need to include your org's name, a contact email, and a date and time of your meeting. You can't just say, join our club. It needs to be a specific meeting or event, or maybe a weekly time. All the flyers you hand out don't need this info if you want it to be more general with those handouts. Now let's talk about the opportunities that you have for tabling throughout the year. The first big ones are the various involvement fairs that we host. They happen throughout the year and you'll receive emails as they approach for how to sign up. We also have a fair at every Highlander orientation for both incoming traditional first years and at transfer orientation. Throughout the year, you can table any day you want. Most groups think you can only do Wednesdays, but that's not true. Consider unconventional days and times. Tabling on a Monday might mean less traffic, but it might be easier to have a decent conversation with a student as they walk by as opposed to competing with 100 other clubs in a concert 10 feet away. Whenever you decide to table, don't forget that the hub gives out tables and chairs from the welcome desk on the first floor. Just tell them what club you're with. If you want to reach the students living in the residence halls, consider asking one of the reception desks there for how clubs might be able to table. Sometimes they have a mechanism in place for groups to table during meal times, for example. Lastly, keep an eye out for what we call yield events, which are events for prospective and newly admitted students. Finding your club might be the reason they choose UCR, you know? Now when you table, here's some general tips. Consider which members might be best for tabling. This might not be everyone's skill set. Think about who is personable and charismatic and who knows your club well enough to sell it. But you should also try to share the workload. Don't rely on one or two members to do all the tabling. Try to incorporate as many folks as you can, as long as they're good at that particular job. Everyone who tables should have a pretty solid pitch for tabling, so have them practice beforehand. Summarize the club, tell people why they should join, and then gauge their interest. Something that clubs often neglect is trying to connect with faculty and staff to promote their club. If you have ties to an academic department, ask faculty members if you can pass out information before class or give a short presentation. Sometimes even writing on the whiteboard can be effective. Seek out relevant academic or resource offices. If you started a brand new group revolving around mental health education, you should connect with The Well, our on-campus wellness office that does mental health events. Connecting with these offices might mean collaborations, possible funding, or even just staff encouragement or support. These folks also might have email lists that you could promote your org in. There isn't an email all students option at UCR, so the closest thing is figuring out who has an email list and how do you get your org spotlighted there. Now, throughout all of these tactics, you're going to encounter 3 types of people, and we need to think about how much of your time you're spending on them. First, we have the always joiners. It's a no-brainer. The first-year English major is going to join the English Majors Association. This is a person who you talk to and they immediately connect with you and you're certain that they'll show up. You don't need to spend a lot of time and energy on these people. You're in recruitment mode, so get their info and move on to the next person. You also don't need to spend much time on the never joiners. This English student likely is not interested in your pre-med fraternity. You know immediately that there's nothing you can do, so any energy you spend here is wasted. So you spend your time and energy on the maybe joiners. They have a reason to join, but they're just not sure. Maybe they're concerned about time commitment. Maybe they don't know their major yet. Maybe they're just shy, so they don't really say much. These are the people you can impact. You can have an in-depth conversation and maybe get them to open up or get this person to buy into what your org is about. Your time and energy might just make a difference here. Now, at some point, you'll end up with an email interest list. Maybe after orientation, maybe after an involvement fair. But what should you do with this list? Don't wait to email the students. Throughout the summer, for example, email them and share important social media sites or ask them to contribute ideas through a survey. Keep them engaged. If you know your meeting times, send them those sorts of things. And don't get rid of these lists. Maybe someone's class schedule has been crazy, so they can't join now. But who knows what next year might bring. Go back to these interest lists. Maybe compiling into one list, but indicating when you gathered these names. So maybe after a few years, you can remove those that haven't responded. So these are just general tips for recruiting and promoting your club that hopefully you found useful. If you want a more tailored plan or advice, feel free to stop into Hub 229 and ask to set up a meeting with your advisor so we can figure out what sort of plan would work best for your group. Thanks for watching.